Hello everyone, this is Mr. Skeleton Man here, bringing you a quick crash course on C#. I'm going to be using Visual Studio 2022, or in this case, Visual Studio Community 2022. So once you have that downloaded, I want you to open it up, and you should get a window like this. So then, for this specific project, I'm using a ASP.NET Core Web API, just to make it easier for us to visualize what's happening with the code. If you want to make it yourself, go ahead. All you got to do is hit next, choose whatever name you want it to be, hit next again, and then you can decide whatever version you'd like it to be. I'm going to use .NET 6. Since it's the basics, I don't imagine any of the lower versions would be any different for what I'm doing, but there is still a possibility. So once you do that, you want to go over to Create, which I already have, and here is my YouTube video API, which I'll be using to share with you the basics of C#. So the first basic thing I want to go over are comments. Comments are different sentences, whatever you can put in the code that the code will just completely ignore. I wanted to go over these first because I will be writing some notes throughout the code just to kind of help explain things. And there are two different kinds of comments. Both are pretty well understood what they do just by the name. For instance, there's the single line quote where you can, or quote, single line comment where you can make a comment only on one line. So single comment here, and you can make those just by the /, or you have the multi-line comments, like as the name suggests, you can do for multi-lines. And to do that, you have to do / and star, and then you can hit enter a few times, and you have to close out the comment with another slash. So like I said, I want to go over these because I will be writing notes to try and help you guys out with some of the information. So the first thing we should go over, if you're ever going to want to program, are variables and the different types of variables. Now, you can imagine a variable as a box that holds information, and each type of variable or box can only hold specific kind of information. So make a quick list here of some of the variables that you're most likely going to experience pretty daily if you program daily. First one being the integer, or in C#, the int. And these are things like whole numbers basically. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., etc. And then you also have another numeric one called the decimal, which, as the name suggests, can be any numbers that have a decimal. So 1.1, 1.23, even 3.14. Next, we have the Boolean, or in C#, the bool, which can only be either true or false. These typically help with decision making, as we'll see later on. Next, we have the string, which is pretty much anything that is, not pretty much, it is anything that is in double quotes. So we have a sentence here. You can even have an empty string, which is, well, there's no characters in between double quotes. Anything like that. But these are not an exhaustive list of different variable types or data types. These are just some of the most common you will experience in your programming lives. Now there are operations you can perform on the numeric data types, like your addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, all that stuff. But you cannot do that for your booleans or your strings or other data types, because it just doesn't make sense to say what is true plus true or what is true minus true. It's a little weird. Doesn't really work. But we could do that with numeric data types, and I will show that to you now. Okay, so let's get to programming. Firstly, I kind of want to show you what we're dealing with. I'm not going to go into the details of how you get to this point. I'm just going to go over the basics, like I said, and just kind of show you how to do some math real quickly with integers. But first, let me show you what we're dealing with. So I'm going to build this, which is simply your computer taking a copy of your code and then actually implementing it. So here is the code that we just saw. I want to try it out. I'm going to hit execute, and it returns 1. That's all it does right now. So let's make it do something else. In this case, why don't we have it add two integers together? So I can do two things. I can do a var, which just is short for variable, and we could say it equals to 1, or I can do an int 2, I guess, equals to 2. So either way, doing the var or int, it's not really going to matter. Doing int just declares the the type of variable that this integer 2 is going to be right away, whereas var, your computer, the code will just figure it out depending on whatever's on the other side of the equal sign. So right now, since we want to add them, we can do integer plus integer 2. And now if we save it and then we build it again and we execute this same code, you'll see 3. And of course, 1 plus 2 equals 3. So there we go. There's that. So what if we want to have someone enter in some integers or numbers? Well, that's pretty easy. We can also just do this int, I guess integer 1 again, or integer 2. I'm going to have to get rid of this and integer because we no longer need that. And now update this to 1. So now what we do is we'll build it. What we could do with this is we can now enter the different integers that we want to do. So we have integer 1 right here. I'm going to put in 15 and then I'm going to do 31. Hit execute and we got 46. Cool, cool. That's pretty simple stuff now, isn't it? Well, like I said, you can also do subtraction, you can do division, multiplication, and that's, again, the basics for the numeric stuff. Now, when it comes to strings, it's a little different. Let's show you how that works. So to do a string, it's pretty simple. What we're going to do first is we're going to update these parameters so that they are now the type string, and the return type is also going to be string. This lets this method know that you need some strings and you have to return a string. So right away we're not going to see any errors because you can, of course, add two strings together and make one long string. However, you cannot subtract, multiply, or divide. Only add. So actually, I'm going to rename these real quick. String 1, string 2, and we're going to update the names here. And we're going to build it again and see what happens. So now we're going to try it out. Put in whatever you want. How about we do classic hello world. Execute. And we get, well, a weird hello world. Now this happens because we didn't add a space in between it all. So now if we try it again, it should look normal. And this time I just realized I forgot to do, whoops, an exclamation mark. There we go. That's about as much as you can do in terms of any kind of arithmetic for strings. But I wanted to show you the difference between the numeric algorithms that you can do, arithmetic that you can do, versus what you could do with strings. Next, we're going to go over our if statements. These are a way to kind of check if your data has changed or if you want to make a decision. For instance, you want to check if a certain statement is true. So to best show you how to do it, I'm just going to show you how to do it. So first, you're going to start out with an if. Haha, shocker. And then inside those parentheses, you want to check to see if a certain statement is true. So in this case, I'm going to say if 1 equals 1, then I want to return, let's do a string, 1 equals 1. And then we can also go a step further, that in the case that this statement in the parentheses is not true, we can return 1 does not 1. So basically, if 1 equals 1, then we want to return this string. Otherwise, if 1 does not equal 1, then we want to return this string. This is a very simple example. Not the best, I'd say, but I think it gets the job done. So I'm going to build it, and we should see this one come back, of course. These don't matter at this point. There we go, 1 equals 1. So now if we go back to our integer example, we can input 2 and we can do I guess a string, and we'll make it a symbol. So that way, if symbol equals, let's say a plus sign here, do integer 1 plus integer 2. Otherwise, we should return, I don't know, integer, can't type, minus integer 2. So what this is going to say is if I enter in a plus sign for the symbol, then we should add the two integers together. Otherwise, we're going to subtract them. So let's see it. Try it out. Let's do 5 plus 10. And we're going to do a plus sign. There we go, 15. So now if we change it to anything other than a plus sign, let's do y. It's minus 5, because, 5 minus 10. So that's pretty simple there. Now, what if we want to use some booleans, some trues or falses? So I'm going to change the first one to, I'm going to change this one to a boolean. I'm going to say add, I'm going to call the variable add integers. So now if add integers is true, then we're going to add them. Otherwise, we're going to subtract. There we go. Calculator. It's already tried it out. Let's do 5 and 10 again. Why not? So we're going to make it true. And it's 15. So there we go. That's basically what an if statement does. And as we learn more and more, you could do a lot more different things with the if statement as well. These, again, are just the basics. So let's go to the next topic. Next thing we're going to go over is called a switch statement. And this is basically where you have a bunch of different decisions, or you have a bunch of different outcomes that could happen depending on what the input is. It's basically another if statement, but with the switch statement, you can have many of the if parts that you want to look for. So let me show you how to do that. Switch, and then here's the variable that we're going to look at to figure out what we need to do. In this case, I'm going to update the parameter up here. I'm going to change it back to the symbols, and then I'm going to throw the symbols into here. And so in the case where symbols equals a plus sign again, we're going to return integer 1 plus integer 2. Don't forget to break. Never mind, we won't need to since we're returning. That's for other reasons. So in the case where symbols is minus sign, I'm going to return integer 1 minus integer 1 or 2. And then in the case where multiplication and then division and so on and so forth. You get the idea. So here's the final switch statement. Now you'll notice I have the default here. So basically what that does is if symbols doesn't match any of these characters, then we're just going to default it to this and we're just going to return 0. So why don't we try it out? Integer 1, classic 5, and a 10, and we're going to add it. You get 15. Let's try subtracting. You get negative 5. Multiplying 50 and dividing. Ooh. Now, why did that happen? I guess you're going to have to find out in the next video. Hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.